Oh, holy sh! Have you ever exerted that much energy trading, guys? It can be a lot of hard work. Well, in this video, we're gonna talk about my top 5 strategies to make $100 a day as a new day trader. Let's get into it.
All right, what is up, Forrest Force? Welcome back to another banger of a video. We're going to talk about some of the most effective ways to make $100 a day as a trader. Now, these are just supposed to be fun, simple ways to really get you out of that nervousness, that anxiety that you might have as a new trader. $100 a day is exceptionally doable at many account sizes, even if you're all the way down to like $1,000 account. Now, $1,000 is 10% of a $100 is 10% of $1,000 account. So that's on the riskier side, but it is possible. So I'm going to open your mind to some of the strategies and ways that you can make $100 a day. This video is a little cheeky, but it is serious at the same time. My name is Forrest. I invest in stuff. I think that everybody should too. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell. We're going to waste no more time here. We're going to get into it. So the first strategy, and these aren't in order of importance, is to sell premium. So what is selling premium? Well, you can look at my video of what are options, which I actually just recorded, and I assume might be posted before this, but premium is basically, the value of an option contract. When you buy options, if you're trading options, we all know that they have value, right? Maybe you want to buy something like NVIDIA options or Apple options, right? And you buy calls, you buy puts, right? Those give you the right to buy or sell, NVIDIA, Apple, AMD, whatever it is, at some certain price. Well, instead of buying those, you could sell those. You could sell premium. You could be the person that people are buying those from, right? If you ever bought an option contract and then lost money on it, well, the person who sold that to you won that trade, right? So trading is a zero-sum game, either buying it from other traders or most of the time you're buying it from a market maker, but you can be somebody who writes premium. Now, the margin requirements to write premium can be pretty high, so check with your broker to understand what those are. But that is number one, is selling premium. It's a good way to make consistent income. There are a lot of people who do things like, sell iron condors and all these different option strategies, covered calls or not covered calls, credit spreads is the word I was looking for, and all these other strategies around selling premium. So that's number one. Number two, which is one of my favorite strategies and is really fits into the way that I trade. If you looked at my other videos, there's a video on my channel showing where I made $16,000 in a day. Damn. And as of the recording of this video, we just had CPI, which was on the 10th of November. Today is the 11th. And I made $15,000 yesterday trading macro levels on CPI, right? So what do I mean by macro levels? Macro levels, if you think about support and resistance levels, right? So resistance is resisting the price going up. Support is supporting or stopping the price from going down. If you do this on the macro, that means you're charting, you're looking at the daily chart, you're looking at the weekly chart, you're applying your volume at price indicator, which shows you the amount of volume, the amount of market activity at each price, and you're looking at the peaks and valleys on that chart, and you're coming up with support and resistance lines at the extended ends of your daily chart, right? And what this gives you are the area where you have your weakest and strongest buyers and sellers too, right? What do I mean by that? Every time the market takes off, there are always people right at the top who enter right there, then it reverses, right? Those are the weakest buyers. And what that means is that the next time that we approach that level, because they've always been red, right? They got in right at the top because they've always been red, and everybody else who got in at the same time, as soon as we hit there, there's going to be a ton of selling pressure because they're going to get out. So if you're wondering why is it that we test the level and we come down, we test it and we come down, it's because of weak buyers, right? Weak buyers are the reason that this happens. Well, they're a reason, but they're a very important and powerful reason why this happens. They've always been red, and so they need to get out. So you're going to do that on the macro. That is where your biggest levels are. There's tons of these. Check your round numbers as well. You know, looking on ES right now, you know, there's really big support right around 4,000, you know, 37.20. We're not going to chart in this video. We're going to keep it moving, but do the big macro levels, which brings me into number 3. Do the micro levels, guys. So micro levels, and this is really cheeky, but this is so important. It's so cheeky, but this is like the best way to make money, guys. So you started on your daily, you have your macro levels. These are where your really strong reversals are going to give you your awesome swing trades. Okay, now I want to day trade. Go down to the 15-minute, do the 30, and we're going to start with a 30-minute, 30-minute and 15, and do the same thing. The important part here is, especially if you're trading indexes like me, right? If in the last day we've moved up 300 points, when you go back and you're trying to do your volume at price analysis and understand how much volume has happened at every price, you might have to go further back in time than a week or 2 weeks, right? We might be outside of the range within the last week of tradable data, right? So you're gonna need to go further back in time. That's okay. Go as far back as you need to, because buyers and sellers, market participants exist at every price, for the most part, unless we're talking about gaps. But we're not talking about gaps in this video. Maybe we will. Maybe we will talk about gaps in this video. But do that on the micro level. We're gonna talk about that next. So number 4, which I just thought of, which is not on my list, is trading gaps, gap fills. So what is a gap fill? Another really cheeky one, actually. So a gap fill, if you look at a chart and you just imagine that the price went from, you know, $90 to $100, the market closes. So one day we go from 90 to 100, and then the next day it opens at 110. Whoa, how is that possible? Well, it happens all the time, and if you look at charts, you'll see that we have these little gaps between the days. And because there was market participation at 100, and there was market participation at 110, right? There's this gap, there's this area of profitability and loss that exists for people on both sides of that gap. And very often, not always, but very often, you can look to aggressively trade the gap. And so if there are other indicators that favor the market moving in the direction of the gap, right? If the gap is above you and we're moving there, if the gap is below you and we're moving there, it's a good idea to lean into those trades, because the market tends to move. We might even just wick through the gap pretty aggressively, or at least check up on those pre-market levels. So check your gaps, check your pre-market levels. Very often there will be a pretty obvious trade there, and you can hit your $100 a day trading goal. And number 5 is something I've started doing recently. I love doing this, and I'm kind of mad I didn't start doing this earlier, and that is trading futures. So there's a big old asterisk, you know, with futures, and that is the margin requirement. So before I even talk about what futures are, and why I think they're awesome, they do require a decent amount of margin, right? So I trade ES futures, also trade mini futures, right? Every 1 point move, we'll close this for now, we don't need any more. Every 1 point move in the price on ES gives me $50, right? So if ES moves 10 points, I just made 500 bucks. If I trade 4 contracts, you do the math, that's $2,000 on a 10-point move. And ES moves 10 points basically every day. Well, today is not a good example because we didn't buy up until the end of the day. The reason futures are so good though, well, actually let's talk about the margin requirement. So the margin requirement is high. It's a leveraged product, right? And so if you actually look at the value, like I was buying one ES contract the other day, and even though I made 50 bucks per contract, the actual value of the underlying asset was like $180,000, guys. $180,000. And because it's margin, there's a margin requirement. And so if the value of that contract drops too low, right? Value of the underlying drops too low, that can affect your margin requirements, and you can get margin called. So pay attention to margin. Do not hold these into infinity. Well, why would you hold them into infinity for? It's because there's no theta. So with futures, there's no theta. You can breathe a little bit. They're a great idea in trending days. So one of the things that I've started doing is, instead of buying options and trying to figure out which data contract to do on a trending day, is I just long ES or I just short ES and I just ride it out, you know. And what's really cool is, you know, on trending days, you'll tend to have these like blips. So I'll immediately make, I don't know, let's say I'm up 400 bucks, then we consolidate and we just chop. But if I was an option, you know, my position would just be getting eaten away, eaten away, eaten away. With futures, the value changes. Just dropped my phone. The value changes, but I'm not getting beaten up by theta. So really awesome option.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
To do outside of options. So those are my top 5 ways to make $100 a day. And the reason that I put those guys, and they're really simple, is because you'll notice that none of those talked about technical analysis. None of those talked about looking for flags. None of those talked about, you know, looking at the OI. None of those talked about, you know, all the different crazy things, MACD, RSI, all these crazy things. If you just look at the macro levels, trade level to level. If you look at the micro levels, trade level to level, right? If you look for gap fills, which happen all the time, look for a setup to trade the gap. That could be one trade. All of these are just like one trade in a day, and you could easily make $100 a day with one trade by doing this. Stop with all the crazy math and the science. You know, go look at a chart and try and prove me wrong in the comments, right? There's so much money to be made trading macro to macro, micro level to micro level, support and resistance, and trading futures, and not going for these zero dated YOLO plays. That is it for this one. I hope you enjoyed it. Guys, my name is Forrest. I invest in stuff, and I think that you should too. Go ahead and join us here. Check the links down in this description if you want to join my community. I would love to talk to you. Ultimately, I'm here to help. That is my passion. I'm going to get out this chair and hit the intro. Or the extra. The extra. I'm going to hit the outro.